Ever think you could trust the UN? At its core, the UN is something that's very positive. It's the ability to join together for the purposes of peace and to get along with your neighbor. And now we see such war drums in Russia. I mean, wow. And the media is starting to like that, which actually means the world's healing from Corona. If we could talk about something else, these things are probably always going on. They just won't make a story out of it now, which means that they think that we might have juiced the story of Corona enough. If we even remember what we're calling it Corona. Now it's Omicron or something like that. So we're entering a new era, the Rebbe says. We always had the ability to make good decisions for what's good for the world, and peace was something that was always obvious, but the world wasn't ready to accept that. But now we've entered a new era that, contrary to what the world went through just like 80 years ago or something, the Holocaust, which says that the world thinks that war is still something, and you could see the way that Chamberlain is portrayed as a foolish pacifist in the face of total evil. It was like the last stand of Klippa, according to this philosophy. So I just want to read you these words, and you'll see what I'm talking about. And then I want to daven. Yeah, because it somehow got late again. So the true reason to the fact that lately we've seen this urgency to complete the possibility for world war is chadshus v'hischalas tkufa chadasha, and it's entering a new era, shal kiyam ha'olam al pi tzedek v'yesher, where the world is sustained by the desire to bring righteousness to the world, shalom v'achdus, peace and unity, kemud gash b'yeser b'asklatas v'achrazas manhigayim v'sa'ela b'erev Shabbos zeh, as we see blatantly in the fact that in the United Nations, on that Erev Shabbos, on Zach Shvat, which was my birthday, it's coming up. People, get your party hats ready. He loirak mitzad chiyuv haseichel, sherei chiyuv haseichel hayagam b'chol der shalifnei zeh. This is not a new idea, because this idea existed for all time. It just never gained in popularity in terms of the guy that's on top making such a decision. He always had different ideas once he got comfortable in the throne. All generations preceding it, intelligence obligates the world to run that way. In fact, everyone who tried to rule the world, like the Romans, for example, thought that they were bringing light to the world. The world was barbarians, and you had to conquest. So what's different now? The idea is borders, not conquest. Conquest through recognition of differences and geographical boundaries. But those are described as boundaries that both partners agree to put up. So therefore the boundaries themselves aren't boundaries. It's just part of each person's idea, having their own private garden, to do it their way. So but rather, we are coming close to the time where the Torah proclaims and premonises, is that a word? Messianic, that it's something that was, there was an awareness of this from Har Sinai. People, the world is going to eventually beat their swords into plowshares. The fact that this is done by all these nations gathering together to proclaim that they're going to beat their swords into plowshares, This is because Shehine Ze Melech Mashiach Ba. It's because of the fact that the rabbis, the leaders, have the power to proclaim that this is the Messianic era, and why can't we all just get along? The power of the rabbis, Malachi Rabbanan, who are my kings, the Gemara says, in the name of Hashem, that is the rabbis. So if you had an authentic leader, what does an authentic leader proclaim? Shehina Ze Mashiach Ba, that now is the Messianic era. We just have to unveil it. Beginning with my father-in-law, the Frierdiker Rebbe's, the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe's ruling, Shikfar Nishlemu that we've already completed all of our things that we had to do through the entire time of exile. And now we're ready to just go into it. The Messianic era, here it is. And so too with anyone who takes the Rebbe's words seriously, in such a blatant instruction to rabbis to rule that all that's remaining to do is receive the Messianic era. And the Rebbe says, in fact, that's what rabbis are doing. That the time of redemption has arrived. Yamad Malach Beis David, that a king should rise up from the house of David, King David, the Davidic dynasty. And you're to assume that he's Mashiach. There's going to be a Melech, someone that stands up in the time of exile, who is actually a king prior to the redemption. A king is a king because he accepts the sovereignty of Hashem and he doesn't fear anything. He just wants to implement God's will on the world. That person becomes a king. If he happens to be from the tribe of Judah, then he could be a candidate for the actual wearing the crown. That this is something that will be realized to be something that was just a fact. Because it could be there are other times, for example, Rabbi Akiva thought Bar Kochba, in the time of the revolt against the Romans, the ruler Bar Kochba, Rabbi Akiva said that he was Mashiach. And he was a pretty wise person. But the time wasn't there. The Rebbe here is saying that the world is ready now, so that the candidate is going to be determined to be Mashiach Bevadai, the person who proved themselves to be Mashiach. Psak Din Sinai, as a ruling, just as it is, as if it was given in the Ten Commandments in Mount Sinai, which is to be something that penetrates the entire mind of the world. The entire world will be filled with this idea. To the extent that the leaders of the Gentile nations, they come up with their own idea, according to their principles, realizing that Torah gives them the power through the fact that the sovereignty on earth is law. Remember, it says that the hands of kings are the hearts of kings are in the hands of Hashem. Hashem controls what they do. So it's dependent really on the force with which rabbis follow the advice, and that now is the time to proclaim as a ruling in the Torah that the time of redemption has arrived, because we see it amongst the Gentiles themselves. The nations of the world all devote themselves to the idea of peace in the world. We have the same mission. It's really semantics from there. What color badge you're going to put on your corner of your shoulder. It's in our power to simply tell the truth as it is, that people all really have the same destination of everybody really wants peace. There's a lot of bad people that try and control people to make it, to incentivize that. But if you incentivize a good relationship with your neighbor, that's the idea of making boundaries and having borders, as opposed to having the idea of conquest. And you make borders and everyone agrees to the same rules and they all want to get along as a happy family. You don't want to live with your brother-in-law. that this is something that's obligatory according to the intelligence of man, meaning that these ideas have already penetrated the world. But the world itself proclaims that the time of redemption has arrived. Okay, so one more thing. Okay, we got the idea of the mechitza hubayf and the shutfim. You decide to put up boundaries as a partnership agreement. Sometimes people say it's best to separate. Let's go our separate ways. Didn't Journey sing it that way? I think maybe one thing I wanted to add to this. Maybe. No. Okay, so did you get the point? You always have to be committed towards pursuing the Messianic idea. That's why Rabbi Akiva was important to him to stand by Rabbi Bar Kochva, this warrior. The time required a leader who was a warrior at the time. You have a revolution. Welcome, Arlene. You had a revolution against the Romans, and you had to have a warrior figure. Now the image of the Messianic warrior evolves. The Rebbe identifies the Messianic warrior today as simply someone who speaks to the world and tells them what's obvious already. He's someone that says with enough confidence to get that idea across and make its point. It doesn't even have to be uttered in their ears. The very fact that the Rebbe can say these words makes Torah give the power to the the powers that be to all stumble like a clock is right twice a day. The clocks, I mean, that go like this, kids. They've stumbled across the truth that was always under their nose. The only thing that's lacking is the ability for people to say in the name of the Torah that we're all in the same mission together. The rest is semantics. Have a great day.